Hello, my name's James Watling and welcome to Peep Live, episode number 13, which seems appropriate as we move towards Halloween. Hopefully my son, James Rhodes-Keach, is watching tonight. He's a big fan of Friday the 13th. But I think with his lame dad presenting, he may not be, but hopefully he is. As I say, we're coming to you live from the centre of Newcastle in the luxurious exclusive studios. We are Peep Live, your number one YouTube channel for combat and lifestyle news. We are almost reaching, 2,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already subscribed, if you'd like to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button, tell your friends, tell your family. We actually have a competition that falls onto the 2,000 subscribers, which I'll be telling you more about in a second. So hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on Twitter at peep-magazine, follow us on Instagram at peep.ltd, and the website is peep.ltd. There for you. There you go. As I said, my name is James. I keep going to say that a lot tonight, as I said. My name is James Watling. I am the CCO, the Chief Content Officer of Peep. I do. I would like some text for that in future episodes as well. You all get your CC numbers as well. I'm also the creator and coach of Team Alpha. Team Alpha is a lifestyle and let's say fitness brand. It is a combination of nutrition, of supplementation, of sports psychology, strength and conditioning, as I said, and martial arts, working with both professional and amateur athletes. We are based predominantly at the exclusive Elite Fitness Gym in Alnwick. You can follow me on Instagram at TeamAlpha1424, at Twitter at WatlingHot, and you can follow Elite Fitness also on Instagram at Elite Fitness. As I say, subscribe, 2,000 subscribers. Once we hit that subscribe button, we have a competition. The competition is sponsored by one of our partners, Spennymoor Sports. The lucky person will win a set of Tough Wear hand paddles, boxing hand paddles, ready-to-use hand wraps, gauze, and boxing tape. Now, to win those, what we will basically do is once we reach 2,000 subscribers, we will randomly pick a subscriber from our subscription base, and that lucky person will be randomly generated, picked, and they'll be notified, I believe, through Twitter. Is that correct? Or through direct message on Twitter, or through the comment section. Once we announce a winner, we're going to do it live. That's not the end of the show, by the way. That's the start. Left for the start, right for the end. So, so if you would like to win some of these tremendous goods, which have been, as I say, donated to us by one of our partners, by Spennymoor Sports, the UK's and certainly the Northeast number one sporting and boxing retailer. If you shout out to Kieran Kane. If you'd like to watch a small, like a mini documentary, if you go onto our YouTube channel on the peep-magazine, and if you scroll down, you actually see the day we went along and did a bit of filming, spoke to Kieran, talked a little bit about the background in Spennymoor Sports, so please check that out. In the background there, working the camera, working the sound, working the production, directing, the writer.
I was going to say just working
and the founder, Mr. Cliff Sainsbury, my co-conspirator in the back there, and also the heir to the Sainsbury fortune. So once that comes in, we'll be straight on the quayside with the big studio. Yeah, and don't worry, we're still going to be with you. Everything will just be bigger and brighter. But I've got to say, actually, on a very true note, the studio looks fantastic tonight. I hope you, the viewer, are appreciating the studio, and a little bit of kind of pre-up there for what's coming up in the show. It's a little bit of memorabilia. So you'll be excited to hear. We'll be talking a little bit about this iconic British horror film soon. I just want to mention the music. It was brought to us by, again, another partner, the new metal band Consinity. That's the introduction music, which is a Katy Perry cover. The Consinity manager actually reached out to us at Peep and explained that one of their guitarists is a massive fan of our channel, and has given us permission to use the music on their archive. I also follow the lead singer on Instagram. He follows me back, comments. So the great bunch of guys, very talented, and we're very proud to have their music on our channel as the introduction. And then you can find them at www.consinitymusic.com. So I would now like to move on and introduce my co-host and the co-founder of Peep, and a talented gentleman on my right, your left, I guess, if you're watching, Mr. Scott Illingworth, who is the... You're this. Oh, you got a CH.
I'm just the nameless one.
CFCH. CC.
Thanks, James. And
You're welcome.
How are you today? You well?
Yeah, good. Thank you. How are you? Good to see you again, man.
Yeah, always.
Good to see you.
Been up to anything interesting in the last?
I was just going to say different. Not introduction, but a different meeting than the last show's meeting, because when we met today, it was actually in the studio, and it's a little bit chilly in the studio.
It is
tonight.
A little bit chilly. And
can you believe 4 weeks ago when we bumped into each other on the day of the show, it was actually on the Newcastle quayside in the bright hot sunshine.
It was.
I didn't realise you were a talented triathlete, and I was just sitting waiting on a friend, as the Rolling Stones song says, and it was bright hot sunshine.
It was beautiful.
So what a turnaround! It's cold and it's dark.
And it's raining.
That's right, and it's raining. But no, I'm good, thank you. Yeah,
good. And you've been up to anything exciting in the last sort of 4 weeks or so?
Yeah, just with it. Obviously, with the Team Alpha, being busy with the the coaching, the mentoring work that I'm doing with those. With the brand, working on some new clothing, which is lovely. With AIM, shout out to AIM and Amy Fettis at AIM Clothing. We'll have on a future show, I'm sure.
Brilliant.
Busy with Elite Fitness, just developing the base there. Fantastic training's going really well. Obviously, I'm retired from competition, I don't need to be hitting the head anymore, which is always nice. But
we're glad about that, James.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. It was. We had a good run. So I'm enjoying with my wrestling and jiu-jitsu now. Training's going well. Kids are great, man. And life's beautiful. I'm blessed.
Excellent.
Grace.
Good.
Thank God.
Good.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, I actually did a little try. I did a sprint try the Sunday after the last live show.
Right.
Down in Hartlepool.
Right. Tell me about this.
That was good. It was a nice little event. It wasn't anything. Didn't take it seriously. We just kind of me and my training buddy went along, and we just kind of we'll not take this one seriously. Just do it for a bit of end of season fun, really.
Yeah,
so kind of
enjoyed it.
It was really it was a really nice event. Cool. It was actually really cold.
Right.
The water was freezing. But it was in the marina, so I thought it'll be a bit warm.
Yeah.
No, it was freezing. Got a little bit lost on the swim somehow. But apart from that, it was all good. Good run. Cycle was all right, but on the whole, it was good. Yeah.
Well, I think I would love to do a piece in the near future on that. A little bit discussion. In fact, can I just mention our trade routes? That's gone
go
up.
for it, man. Yeah.
So the trade routes is a new kind of would it be subtext or subcontext?
It's
subcontent of what's going on the show, where basically we've had syntax, so we have now trade routes. What we're doing, going to various businesses, local businesses, and discussing with the founders and the entrepreneurs who create the businesses, how they got started, what trials and tribulations they went through, not so much what mistakes they made that made them worse, but mistakes that made them better off and progressed them. So we have our trade routes. Peep was the first one. We've done it. We have Cliff's there. Cliff Sainsbury's up there. A little bit of his background and history. We have Scott. Yours is up there.
Yeah, just went up last week.
And that's it. No more are going up there. So man will be going. So what will be interesting is to expand on those trade routes and do a little bit about ourselves, a bit more into detail about Cliff's background and history with his media and his talented media and the awards he's won with that, which a lot of stuff I didn't know about would be nice. A little bit perhaps on myself, the training side, but perhaps we're going to go back to the gym again, to our home base, do a little bit there, and it'd be lovely to do a little piece on your triathlete training, and I'd love to take part in some of that.
No,
so you could
sounds good.
show me and pull me back to shore, basically.
No, we'll
drag
keep
me back
you out
to
of the
shore.
water, I think. Yeah.
No, it'd be good. So without further,
just to interrupt, sorry, James.
Yeah,
I just want to know if Cliff's been doing anything exciting that you can shout across.
I had a few.
You have.
Go for it.
I wrote down a few things that I've been watching over the last few days, the month and all this. But the thing is, I watched that much content. It's not going to be that.
Give us one.
I'll give you one. I've been watching a documentary on iPlayer about the slave trade.
Right.
Oh, yes.
So
Which slave trade?
The abolished slave trade.
Right. For the American. Well, that's not because if you slaves are going back. We're going back.
Do you mean like sort of the British
right
slaves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you mean. Yeah. Like this. Yeah. From the Civil War.
From the Caribbean to the British American slaves.
Yeah. How did you find? How was it?
It was quite interesting because the documentary profiled even seen a slave were compensated for the end of the slave trade. So there's generations of British people who have benefited from slavery, and they've been compensated. I mean, I was aware of old money, but this is old money that really takes a mick, you know. So it's like this kind of empire. I don't want loads of hate mail calling in because I've just watched the documentary, but there's families in Britain benefiting from slaves.
They were their family were slave traders, and they're benefiting today from
because it obviously got abolished, and then all profit cut. So and I'm not talking about like a few quid here. I'm talking about quarter of a million, to each family.
Yeah,
was that quarter of a million back in
today's money?
Yeah,
quarter of a million.
Yeah.
And then I think the British government ended up paying out in today's money an estimated of £17 billion in compensation. So that's why I kind of didn't want to bring it up, because it went deep.
Let's pull out that pit. So it's still on there. It's still on the what did you watch it on? Sorry,
iPlayer, wasn't it, Cliff?
iPlayer, yeah. I mean, there's so much content out there. There's things that you know. There's so much content. There's so much information out there that to consume everything, it would just be. It would be insane. But I mean, if anybody would want, so now we've discussed it. So if anybody would like to watch that documentary and find out, more information about it, then it's on iPlayer. What was it called? What was the name of it? Sorry.
I can't think of the name. It's maybe something like Britain's Forgotten Slave Owners or the Forgotten Slave Trade.
Right.
You'll find it, but I think I'm getting kind of confused now because there's two parts just came up.
Right.
I've only watched part one.
Right. Well, why do we? If we'll once we have the name, we can throw that out if the viewers if they want to watch that. Right then, let's segue.
Britain's Forgotten Slave Owners quickly.
That's what it's called. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that you've been watching over the last few weeks. Right. It's not really a segue, but then let's sharply turn from that just into what's into.
No, thanks, Cliff. Yeah,
you can't. So we're going to move on to the next part of the well, not the next part, but I'm just going to give you an update or an introduction to what's going to be on the show tonight. Peep takeaway. So this is what's coming up on tonight's show. So we have HBO closes its doors on boxing. After, how many years was it in? 17 years? And it was more than that, wasn't it?
18, wasn't it?
18 years in boxing.
Yeah.
HBO finally closed its doors on boxing. Fedor.
45 years.
45 years. I was going to say, I thought 17 is so many. So after 45 years, HBO closes its doors on boxing. I think that goes all the way back to the Gillette Friday night boxing that was going back on in, I think, the 50s, if I remember correctly. We have Fedor Emelianenko, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. We're going to talk a little bit about Fedor, Khabib, a true or false questionnaire, so to speak, for the viewers. And guess what is back?
Is it that usual spot?
It is. It's a usual slot with Ridley Scott. Trade Routes, Unilad and the Ad Bible, Jordan Peterson, our usual slot with Jordan. That doesn't sound quite as right.
No.
Can it be seen with Peter seen? No, that doesn't sound right. We'll come up with something.
We'll work on a jingle for next time.
We'll work on a jingle for next time. PEEPxs and, of course, Hellraiser. So let's start with combat news. So after 45 years, the HBO channel, the HBO and Showtime are essentially the two biggest channels in the UK for promoting, what would you say, showing sport and events, particularly boxing. They're very closely tied to boxing, HBO and Showtime. And it's closing its doors on boxing, outlining their vision for the future. HBO have explained their shock move to drop boxing from their schedule. And a paraphrase quote, I believe, is, "Our mission at HBO Sports is to elevate the brand. We look for television projects that are high profile, high access, and highly ambitious in the stories they seek to tell and the quality of production in telling them." And I'm assuming that also means, moving away from sports in general as well, such as I think one of HBO's biggest, if not their biggest ever show, Game of Thrones, as an example.
Yeah.
Going forward in 2019, they will be pivoting away from programming live boxing on HBO as always. They will remain open to looking at events that fit into the programming mix. This could include boxing, just not for the foreseeable future. Programs such as NFL, which is the National Football League, Hard Knocks, and Being Serena.
Serena.
So I'm assuming Serena Williams. Is
it's
that?
a fly in the wall. And
will be
Williams.
more developed as going forward. Now, just a quick I've just read that off a box, so to speak, but just to kind of dip into that very slightly, because I know we don't have a lot of time on combat news. So for me personally, then, you know, for this big move from such a big studio, do you think that's an example of what's happening now with you know, the Netflix model, the Amazon Prime model, that, you know, TV's changing now, and the way content is consumed is also changing. That it's no longer just a case of kind of, you know, finding your sport on HBO. They want to concentrate more on other things, and you know, maybe the whole demographic's changing.
Yeah, probably right there, James. Yeah, it'll go to a more direct from promoter to pay per view.
Yeah,
really.
I think so.
Kind of the MMA model, to be honest.
Yeah,
is what I'm guessing they're gonna.
Yeah,
is happening. But yeah, what I find bizarre is kind of when I first heard that we're dropping it, I thought they were kind of going to go for more doing those kind of big series, and kind of obviously that's where the money is. But then kind of when I look at the fly on the wall elements of the two programs that they mentioned, I was kind of a bit confused, thinking, well, that is really content light and obviously popular shows over in the States. Yeah, but it's not exactly brain fodder at the same time either, you know?
It's not. It's interesting as well because, I mean, boxing, for me personally, I think, boxing has had a renaissance over the last, I would say, you know, 3 to 5 years. Yeah. As things do, they obviously work in cycles. And it really is, you know, it's not just on a rise, it's risen, it's at the very top. And
is that a British thing, do you think?
Though? Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, you know, it was an American thing. You know, the Americans dominated the boxing scene, and there has been a flip now to the British scene, you know, with likes of, I mean, you could just say the seeds were sown with maybe Kawasaki, certainly with Joe Kawasaki, finish what I was saying. Carl Froch, definitely. You know, that's packing out Wembley again. Every time a show would be up at Newcastle, it'd be sold out. And then, you know, so Britain is really I would say the hub now of boxing. And it's interesting that it's a British promoter that's really, you know, pushed to have the big heavyweight fight against the heavyweight American Deontay Wilder.
Do you think then that's possibly dropped viewing figures for HBO, and that could be a reason?
It could well be. I mean, it could be that maybe the American, because... Yeah, it could be that at a deeper level, that in a sense that boxing's moving out of America as far as the paychecks being written, and therefore the big American channels are losing interest. Because let's be honest, as far as I'm being honest, is that the reason that HBO will not do boxing because it's just not as profitable. It's not because they suddenly just don't like boxing.
Yeah. It's all about
It's all about the dollar.
It's all about the revenue streams.
As it should be in a capitalist society, which means that people have the freedom to go out there and produce goods or to produce content which people can freely choose to watch or not watch. And if you don't watch, it goes out of business. Yeah. If you do buy it or you watch it, the business increases. That's freedom as much as what capitalism is, in my opinion. But that's interesting because now I'm saying, I'm going to segue. Do you have a word of the night? Segue is my word for tonight. So segueing nicely into the next part of that, we're going to talk a little bit about Dazn, which is our mystery. What should we call it? Our mystery machine for tonight. So the viewer out there would like you to do a bit of research because we've been trying to find a bit more on Dazn, pronounced Dazn, spelled capital Dazn. So Dazn have signed the not the world but history's largest contract with a boxer. With Canelo or Saul Alvarez. Canelo actually means cinnamon because of his hair. That's a nickname. His actual name, Saul Alvarez. Right. Who's one of the pound for... I think he may well be at the top of the list pound for pound at the moment, or perhaps certainly the top 2 or 3. I've not looked at the pound. Let's say the Ring magazine's pound for pound. One of the greatest boxers currently active, as he's proven by his 2 victories over Triple G, or was the first a draw? He won the first. First was a draw. Yeah, sorry guys. Well, I had Canelo winning, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was controversial, wasn't it? Yeah, you're right. I think the majority did. And then Canelo won the rematch. And I believe if they were to match again, which I would be up for watching, I believe Canelo would win again. So he recently signed a contract. I watched a lovely interview with Canelo. I think he's a fantastic boxer. He speaks well. He never learned to speak. I mean, he does speak some English, but not fluently. So he is, in an interview, he's translated from his native tongue, Mexican. Yeah. Fantastic boxer. He's managed by or promoted by one of my favorite boxers of all time, Oscar De La Hoya. So he signed a contract with Dazn for $365 million for, I believe, 11 fights. Oscar De La Hoya was actually interviewed by Fight Hub, and he talked a little bit about that. I'm not going into too much in the interview, but if you want to watch that interview, if you go one of our not partners, but certainly one of our not associates, but kind of, what would you say, teammates, Fight Hub. If you want to watch this on Fight Hub, just go on Fight Hub channel, Fight Hub on YouTube, type in De La Hoya interview. And he just basically, what he's saying, underlying point is he's saying DAZN has deep pockets, because he's talking about future fights for Alvarez and other fights that'll be coming up. And he's also because he's also linked with Eddie Hearn, which is, I'm going to talk a bit more about DAZN's linked with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya are quite closely linked together as well.
Okay.
And they're talking about, De La Hoya was all talking about future fights for Anthony Joshua. Where's that going to go? And the underlying point was DAZN has deep pockets. And if you're signing a fighter for $365 million, then you're going to have deep pockets. So what does that mean for the sport when these guys, and this is the mystery machine, who are DAZN? If you're dropping in nearly $500 million on one fighter, that is $500 million, sorry, isn't it? Nearly 500 million. Yeah. 1,000 million when you quantify it, it's a billion. It's not a million, it's 1,000 million.
That's right. Yeah.
In banking terms, anyway. So no, okay. In banking terms. So that's deep pockets to have. So who are these guys? Where have they come from? What does this mean for the future of the sport? Now, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that means he's given a check for $365 million now. It's $365 million that is likely to be paid out over the 11 fights. The idea that he wins them and all this kind of stuff. I could be completely wrong. But it's interesting. Now, going back to what I have on the screen here, Eddie Hearn and DAZN first... has this something to do, sorry, just continue what I was talking about before, has this something to do, not what I was talking about just then, but the fact that, hang on guys, sorry, the fact that HBO have pulled out of boxing, has that got something to do with Eddie Hearn and DAZN having the first ever $1 billion deal as Matchroom and streaming giant DAZN take on America? Matchroom Boxing will stage 16 shows in America, which will be streamed exclusively on DAZN in the States, while 16 of his UK shows will also be shown over the platform. Editors note, or is it lack of American prospects, as boxing has definitely made a shift to the UK? I totally agree with that, but I would say it's deeper than just, the Americans not having heavyweights. I mean, heavyweight is, I wouldn't say the flagship division, that's the word I'm looking for, flagship division of boxing. And they have Deontay Wilder, but I think even if they had a whole load of heavyweights, people are going to go where the money is,
Absolutely,
And if the money's going to be in the UK and those fans are tuning in, then that's where people are going to turn to. So it's interesting. So yeah, I mean, what do you, the viewers, think? We'd love to hear your comments on DAZN. If you know a little bit more about this company than we do, please, put some comments in there. We'd love to read them out. A little bit about about Saul Alvarez signing for the $365 million for 11 fights. Also on the interview, I hadn't mentioned much about Saul Alvarez interview. A lovely couple of guys who are I believe Southern American kind of chaps. A couple of kind of streetwise chaps and well-dressed gentlemen. They're lovely guys. I can't remember their channel, otherwise I'd give them a shout out and recommend that you subscribe and watch. But when they were interviewing Alvarez, who again comes across as a lovely chap and obviously a very talented athlete, they were talking a little bit about him, about his boxing career and his loss to Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd Mayweather's the only fighter to beat him. He does have, is it 2 draws he has on his record now, Alvarez? I don't have his record in front of me. But what he's saying is that that's a fight he'd want again, is to avenge his loss over Floyd Mayweather. And it's an interesting one. I mean, Mayweather beat Alvarez through pure skill, talent, and experience. Alvarez is a much better fighter now. But, I mean, I'd love to know what you guys think and the viewers think, but I don't think that's a fight Floyd Mayweather's like to take, because it'd be such a hard fight for him. He's more like to chase a fight with Khabib, because that's an easier fight and a big payday. But again, love to know what you, the viewers, think. So sticking on the boxing angle,
I'll just give a big shout out.
Go for it.
Big shout out to James Rickaby there. Thanks for watching, James.
Thank you, James. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for the comment as well. Thank you very much.
I'm give you another point, but again, that's not an end of the show. Thank you for watching. Please
glad you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we always love it when our viewers and subscribers comment and let us know how they're feeling about the show. On the boxing angle, then we're going to talk a little bit about Fury Wilder. a very small. A very small amount about Fury Wilder, because we've kind of done it to death in a sense. That fight is coming up, and we will keep talking about it. I want to make one point though. Here's my prediction, and I've been saying this. Go back to the very first show. Any content I put on social media, I'm a big fan of Tyson Fury. I'm also a fan of Deontay Wilder, but I've always liked Tyson Fury. Right back to when he won his British title against John. I can't remember the fighter that he beat to win his Lonsdale belt. It was
John Cornish.
No, he's quite heavy, but he's a very good, very fit boxer.
Twice, didn't he?
Yeah, he fought him twice. That's right. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Tyson Fury. Funny enough, in Matthew Stark, who's a future guest we're going to have on. Shout out to Matthew Stark. I was training with today, actually, the King of the North, who's 11-0 on the unlicensed scene. His last fight, his last opponent, his coach is actually friends with John Fury, Tyson Fury's dad.
Excellent.
And I said, look, pass the message on. I'm a big fan of Tyson Fury. I always have been. I think he's the best heavyweight out there. He's going to beat Deontay Wilder. He's going to beat Anthony Joshua. He's going to beat. I don't have the names, but there's a good couple of handfuls of young heavyweights coming through the ranks. Some great fighters I'd like to feature actually on the show. He's going to beat 3-4 of those and hopefully retire as a happy man. If you'd like to watch Joe Rogan, great podcast obviously, and we're a big admirer of Joe Rogan. The two latest podcasts, or two of the ones that I've watched, Kelly Slater, 12 times I believe, 12 times world champion surfer, 46 I think he is.
No, yeah, that's amazing.
And Tyson Fury. So if you'd like to watch Tyson Fury's, I'm about halfway through on Joe Rogan. Watch that, see what he's come back from: depression, alcoholism, drug addiction, after beating one of my all-time favorite heavyweights, Vladimir Klitschko, coming back to be a heavyweight champion of the world again, remembering that he is currently the linear champion of the world. So shout to Tyson Fury if you are watching. I believe you're going to win the whole stack. So they're on a world tour. So the world tour consists of visiting various cities and having, let's say a head-to-head. I was trying to remember the name of it, like a boxing conference. Let's talk it. It's not a conference, but I did have a better name for that. And interviews with breakfast shows, with on-stage interviews in kind of open studios where the public can come in and watch. So the world tour is taking in New York, London, and Los Angeles.
There we go. That's the world. That's
the
world.
Much, yeah. Yeah, it's like the World Series of baseball, just American. Not even Canada's involved in that one, I don't think. But
no, it's not. No.
Not sure, but it's interesting. So if you want to go on YouTube, the highlights of the tour, basically they're going around being questioned about, asking each boxer, questions, a little bit about their careers, about the upcoming fight, obviously how they feel, about their opponent. Fury's questioning Wilder about his power, his ability to land the power. His power's undisputed. Had an interesting kind of bump into each other in the corridor before this Piers Morgan breakfast interview, where they seemed quite cordial and friendly with each other. I was on board the idea that they were actually quite friendly behind the scenes, and they felt the need to hype it up because obviously Tyson's he's a committed Christian, and Deontay Wilder is a preacher's son, I believe. So obviously they've got very strong faith in God, and they mention that Tyson, they both mention it quite a lot in interviews, and it almost was like that was another bond for them, and they just seem to have a lot of respect for each other. And when they're in the ring together announcing the fight, it's like Deontay reached over and kind of grabbed Tyson's glove and kind of as if it's like a friendship kind of, like friends kind of thing. Yeah. And I wondered if that, if people aren't going to, because, the man on the street wants to see two guys, going at it, so to speak. So maybe that's what I thought was part of it. But then as the tour progresses, the venom scene and the attitude seems to have kind of soured. And it kind of got to the point on the last one, which was in LA, where it came to kind of a bit of a melee with, police, troopers, security being involved, falling over, them they're trying to run each other. And Scott, I'd love to get your opinion on this. So this is what's maybe turned the tide for me in the specs that maybe they do. I'm sure after the fight they respect each other, but there is, there's underlying animosity there. And Cliff, what you think? This is what got me is there were kind of being Tyson Fury was over here with his guys in front and security in the middle. Deontay Wilder was over here. And Wilder, he had something in his hand, which was like, I don't know whether it was food or a drink or something, or maybe his phone or something. And it's almost like he just casually put that down on a stool that was on the stage, kind of like as if to say, I'm putting this down. And then suddenly jumped over to try and get Fury. And everybody jumped in. And it's almost like it was almost like that was not rehearsed, just the opposite, where like he was conscious of, I need to put this down so I don't spill it because I'm going to go get him.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And
no, it does
when
make
you
sense.
watch it, it's almost like a
Because
like
when
a
you
preempted aggressive move kind of thing.
yeah, when you were saying, I thought it sounded like it sounded like stage to try and get the hype,
Yeah,
the fight
yeah. Sell
hyped
tickets.
up, and sell tickets, etc. But you think it was not?
I think
When
yeah,
you
I think
wa-
it's.
I haven't watched it.
I think
so.
it's. I'd love you to see that. You know,
Yeah,
it's so, and the viewer as well. It's under on YouTube. If you just type in Fury Wilder World Tour, and it just tells you a little bit, and you can see that for yourself. We'd love to get your opinion on that. So moving on, can I just do a quick shout out to Spending More Sports, one of our partners and,
Yep.
and supporters of the show, and this tremendous competition that we have. I'd like to give. Yeah.
I'll hold it up.
Scott's got it. We're gonna. Yeah. Sometimes with the camera, I think it's actually
Bring it down a bit. That's it.
brilliant. Yeah. So
A bit more. That's it.
please, that's great. Thank you, Scott.
That's all right.
So we have a competition where you can win. It's around about, I think about 50 pounds value of goods. We have hand wraps, we have these boxing paddles, tape gauze, etc. You can win this. Once we reach 2,000 subscribers, we're going to randomly pick a subscriber from our subscription base. So make sure you subscribe now. Make sure you press that notification button. Tell your friends, tell your family. Do you know what? Just go out into the street now, open the front door, go to the first person you see, and tell them to subscribe to Peep Magazine.
Not you, Cliff.
Yeah, not Cliff. We need you here.
Subscribe!
Subscribe. You can also support us at Patreon, which we hadn't mentioned, the
No, we
Patreon account,
haven't.
if you'd like to.
We're still kind of
We're still on work. Yeah,
we're
we
still
are.
working on that, but very soon you'll be able to go onto Patreon, which I imagine you just type in Patreon on Yahoo search.
Yahoo search.
Yeah, because Google's gone
Google.
a bit left wing for me. I'm not really into that. So yeah, and that's now my default. Well, it's always been my default search engine. I would type in Google to go on, but now I'm just using Yahoo.
Do you use AOL for your email as well?
I don't. I'm on Hotmail, but who's Hotmail? Is that Google?
Oh, that's Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
Shout to hey, listen, Bill Gates is changing the world for the better. He's
Yeah.
inoculating, he's helping to wipe out malaria. So I'm all
Absolutely.
about, Microsoft. And I am an Apple. I like Apple as well. I think Tim Cook's doing a good job over at
That's
Apple.
all right, yeah.
Maybe we should do a piece on Apple on the show soon. Going back to it, Patreon. You can contact us at peepmagazine.co.uk. You can subscribe to us at Peep Limited on Instagram, at Peep Magazine on Twitter. And a big shout out to Consinity for their support and the use of
Absolutely.
their tremendous cover of the Katy Perry track, which is called
ET.
ET.
E.T. Fantastic. Right, let's move on to some MMA news.
Did we put a shout out to Rickaby Chauffeurs?
Rickaby Chauffeurs.
Shout out to Ricky
The,
Chauffeurs for bringing in the talent tonight. Myself, thank you for picking me
I
up
was
from
gonna say,
home.
yeah.
And,
That's
You know.
James.
Yeah.
yep, thanks for picking me up tonight. They're the chauffeurs. I appreciated that. I appreciated the champagne in the back. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's all about the talent. We're all talent. Right. Let's move on to mixed martial arts. Now we are going to drop a small. We've only got 2 parts. I'm saying only. We have two parts for the mixed martial arts news. We're going to move. We're going to jump back, push back. John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson, part 2. That's going to be on a future show. So tonight it's going to talk briefly on Fedor Emelianenko and versus Chael Sonnen. If I can find my notes, that was an interesting heavyweight tournament that was recently. Kind of featured on Bellator, or Bellator as I like to call it. I don't think the finals happened, correct me if I'm wrong, because the final is Fedor against, I just watched his fight, and I can't believe he won. I'll come back to it. It's Fedor versus, it's not Mike. Ryan Bader? We're finding out right now. So I believe the final's going to happen. So what they've essentially done is gathered together the best heavyweights in the world who are not in the UFC to compete against one another to have essentially a last man standing tournament featuring some veterans from the UFC. I know Rampage Jackson was on there. He fought Chael Sonnen, which was interesting. So Fedor and Emelianenko and Chael Sonnen recently fought to a position in the final of the Bellator heavyweight tournament, which was a victory. Spoiler alert for Fedor. I believe he stopped Chael with punches on the ground. Chael was kind of covering up, turned away as Fedor was landing punches on him, and it was stopped. I think it was the second round with a victory there for Fedor. It was an interesting format, which Bellator in a sense.
Bellator.
Bellator. What I like about Bellator is the way I see it. It's almost like a place for those former UFC fighter veterans, rising stars, and perhaps people who want to change from the UFC kind of I don't know, let's say hierarchy, just the way that the UFC perhaps, I don't say control their fighters, because nobody's press ganged into signing with the UFC, but somebody wants just something that's done slightly different with Bellator. They have a lot of fans. Joe Rogan, who's the main commentator for UFC, is actually a fan of Bellator, and he was trying to go to watch the heavyweight final. The name's Bellator. Let me say Bellator. Bellator. So it's got a tremendous fan base. I've not really watched a lot of Bellator, but I do want to get more into it. I mean, we had Strikeforce; they were bought out by the UFC. We had Pride; they went under, which was apparently a lot to do with underlying gangster issues.
I was going to mention if anyone subscribed to UFC Fight Pass, there's the whole history of the UFC when they went into trying to compete with
Pride. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then Pride tried to compete with the UFC. By staging a show in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And the Fertitta brothers and Dana was like, "No, this is
our town.
You're not going to take over."
Of course, right. Yeah. Well, from what I understand, what I read on Pride, not getting off topic here, but there was a lot of underlying, what's it called? Sorry, there was a lot of underlying corruption in Pride.
Oh, okay.
And apparently that's what kind of ripped it. So there's a lot of kind of like illegal money involved, and that kind of took the base out. I mean, Pride had a lot of followers, and the rule set was very different very different. Yeah, I mean, it was in a ring as well, and you could stamp and all. It was crazy. It was insane. I mean, the athletes who went on there, it was unbelievable what was happening there.
Do you know who UFC's main guy was, who they brought over to fight in Pride?
Well, I know UFC always wanted Fedor to fight, but no, I don't. Who was their main guy? Answer me that question again, so I'll answer it. Who was the main guy?
UFC had like a poster boy, like a main guy to go over Pride to fight Pride's guys.
Right.
Do you know who that was?
I don't.
Chuck Liddell.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. And reverse is true, because who was it who left leg, right leg hospital, left leg cemetery, and he moved from Pride. He was a K1 fighter.
Oh, that's
Mirko Krokop. Yeah, the Croatian cop.
James.
There you go. He moved from Pride into the UFC, and he kind of. I remember he actually got knocked out by Gonzalo. He knocked him out with a left kick to the head. Knocked out Krokop with a left kick to the head, who was known for knocking out people with the left head kick to the head. So it was interesting. But also they talked about maybe the stricter drug testing UFC had affected some of the Pride fighters who were coming out, because Pride, you could do whatever the hell you wanted, basically. You could. but no, in Pride, that was UFC. That was Hoist Gracie.
We've just got from Donald Trump's a-hole. We've got Pride with the best rules. They were nuts.
Yeah, that's true, Mr. Donald Trump's bottom area. You're absolutely right. Pride was crazy. And in fact, you can still, if you still remember DVDs, kids. Remember DVDs. Remember VHS. Remember C90s, C60s, C90s.
Yes,
they were the days.
Remember TDK?
Copy and Spectrum 48K games. There it is.
Is that actually on camera?
You could.
Is that actually on camera?
We'll bring it in. Yeah, so if you get into CEX, I think it's called CEX, and you can pick up old Pride DVDs and watch some of the Pride rules and the Pride fight. It's pretty insane. But going back in, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, so Bellator, it's an offshoot, not an offshoot, but it's an alternative to the UFC, or in fact, hand in hand with the UFC. It's something that. Main competitors, but at the same time, I can guarantee, I mean, there will be fans who are strictly UFC, strictly Bellator, but a lot of fans out there, they want to watch both. They just want to see the best fights. So talking about Chael and Fedor, I mean, I love Chael Sonnen. When he was fighting Anderson Silva, I actually picked Chael to win that fight. What a character, what a personality, very intelligent guy. And if you watch the Bellator kind of build up to the fight, the Fedor Chael build up, he's hilarious, Chael. He's a tough guy. He's fought some of the best fighters in the world. Fedor being one, Anderson Silva I mentioned, John Jones. He sparred with John St. Pierre as well. Apparently, I think it was a New York gym, in a basement of a New York gym. And he's also taken several other, another big name on that escapes me in MMA. So that'd be interesting to find out. Very talented fighter, great wrestler, a good boxer as well, striker. Fedor, that's a whole nother game. I mean, Fedor's this phenom, this kind of like, I mean, he doesn't look like much. He's not particularly tall. He's not ripped or conditioned. He's not really in tremendous shape. What a lovely gentleman, though. He's got deep kind of I don't want to use that word, but he's got deep, faith. He conducts himself in the best, in the correct manner. He has great respect, and he's humble, and he talks about that his goal is to be God willing, to be a better man. That's essentially what he says. And a tremendous person. And when I was watching him train, it's like, and I saw him before I actually saw him fight, and watching him on some of these build-ups to the Bellator heavyweight tournament. I mean, he's with his boxing. Don't get me in the wrong. I don't want to get anywhere near Fedor on any kind of, maybe what's it called, like a thumb wrestling competition, and even that I would probably lose. But all these mistakes with his boxing. If you put him against any top 10 heavyweight boxer in a boxing match, he would be schooled, in my opinion. But I'll tell you what, Jesus Christ, what a fighter! Yeah. He's so explosive. Like when I saw him on Pride, going back to Pride, when he'd take a guy down and ground and pound him, and he'd be like, almost his head would be up in the chest, and suddenly before you know it, he's jumping over, throwing punches. So explosive with his wrestling, so explosive with his striking. And another thing, Scott, again going back to Pride, I mean, he beat Chael in the second round, caught him with some punches. The referee stopped it, rightly so. But in Pride, there was this big heavyweight. I couldn't see who it was because it was just on a small clip, like a what would you call it, like an edit of a highlight reel. Yeah. And you saw the back of this fighter coming at Fedor, and Fedor, almost like he didn't have his hands up, and Fedor, it was like he almost stepped to the side and just this throwaway punch like it was nothing, and knocked the guy spark out. He's got to be one of the hardest punchers in any combat sport out there. I believe he punched, is it Nagano, who's meant to be one of the hardest punchers? And we'll talk about him, on another show, that he came up, he was the next big rising star. But these guys get, when I'm saying found out, all due respect to him. But, just because you're big and you're muscly and, it doesn't, and you're knocking people out, doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to win. But I'll tell you what, Fedor's got, I would put him as the hardest puncher.
Well, so DTA, as he's now called.
Yeah, DTA.
Yeah. Says a good big fighter always beats the little fighter, and he thinks Barker beats Fedor in the final, though.
Barker, thank you. Really? That's interesting. I'm picking Fedor to win that. But
young, strong, great wrestler.
Beta. Yeah, absolutely. I think, will that thank you for your comment. Will that work against Fedor, his age? Because he is coming to the end of his career, and he's openly spoken about that. But I personally think that Fedor's just got that, and I use the word X factor in its literal terminology, not X Factor, the talent show, which I'm not interested in. But he just has something about him that I believe will allow him to beat Beta. But I wouldn't be surprised. So our last piece on combat news on the MMA section is the Khabib McGregor. So we have some true or false questions. We're not going to go on to a big thing about Khabib McGregor. We've talked it to death. We know all about the controversy. You don't need to know records. You can go search them. So we're going to talk just a simple true or false, and I'll just give a little bit of a few lines of background into the true or false, what we mean by that. So Mayweather Khabib. Do we think that a Floyd Mayweather and Khabib boxing match, and it is going to be boxing, because I watched a small interview with Mayweather leading up to this by, I can't remember the name, it was like just a kind of a media paparazzi channel, and Mayweather says, he said,
TMZ.
Thank you, TMZ. He said, openly says, it's a hand game, baby. He says, if you're coming to me, he says, you come into my world. Mayweather's not going to go and do MMA. I'm not even getting to that topic. But so yeah, Khabib Mayweather, are they going to fight? I imagine it'll be a professional boxing match. It will be maybe a 12-round professional boxing match. How many people would tune in and watch that? A lot of people would. I believe as many as Mayweather would watch. As Mayweather McGregor would watch that, or at least not far off. It's a big money fight. Mayweather's talking. He did state a figure of what he would want for that fight to take place. So he's wanting big money. He's wanting hundreds of millions, a guarantee. What would Khabib take? Would Khabib take 10 million, 20, 50 million, his biggest purse of Khabib's career? And it would be an absolute rout, even at a 41, 42-year-old Mayweather who's been out the ring for, God knows how long, who hasn't fought a professional boxer for God knows how long, would just run rings around Khabib. And everybody, or not everybody, but people will say, well, Khabib's, he's stronger on the inside, he can hit hard. What do you think would happen if you put Khabib in a boxing match against Saul Alvarez? I can tell you, he'd been KO'd in the first or second round. So, what does a viewer think? Mayweather Khabib, is it on? Khabib goes to Bellator. Is that going to happen? Cliff,
Yeah.
send me location. Just
Smash this guy.
no problem. Just send me location.
What are they again, James?
Mayweather versus Khabib. Khabib goes to Bellator.
Yeah.
Khabib gets stripped of his title, and Khabib McGregor rematch. That's what I have down on here. Yeah, so will Khabib go to Bellator? It's possible. I mean, I think that links onto the second one. If he is stripped of his title, which I think is an absolute disgrace. Yes, what he did was inappropriate, to say the very least. Fighters are meant to be switched on and switched off. They're meant to bash the hell out of each other in camp and in fight, and then switch. And do you know what? For the vast majority of the time, we do. But I think you've got to look at the context of the build-up, how it was allowed to build up. The incident with the coach. And yes, you can say trash talking is normal in boxing, fair enough. But did McGregor cross the line? Well, possibly so. Khabib, what did he do? He jumped over the cage. He shouldn't have done, of the octagon. He shouldn't have done that. He should have been reprimanded. It should have been a percentage of his purse. Should have been stripped of the title? No, I personally think absolutely not. Should have his money withheld, his purse? Absolutely not. It's an absolute disgrace, to be quite honest with you. So in protest, will Khabib go to Bellator? Well, I don't know what his contract is. It's a legally bounding contract, which that is essentially what a contract is by definition is, if it's done correctly, if it's signed and sealed and delivered, etc. But would he go? Well, who knows? Maybe he runs out his contract. If Bellator say, look, instead of paying you $5 million a fight or whatever he gets with the UFC, we'll pay you 5.5 and we're going to look after you. So yeah, it'll not just be a money decision, but I think as well, Cliff and Scott.
Yeah.
If Bellator say, look, we forgive you for that, please don't do that when you're over here, but we understand the reason behind it. We want to take care, we want to look after, we want to promote you. We're going to, buy your dad a car or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so you take care of him and be sincere, then it may well happen. As we've said, Khabib, will he be stripped of his title? And then will there be a Khabib McGregor rematch? Now, some people want to see that.
You know what I want to see?
How would it be built up? I don't know.
Tony Ferguson. Has to be.
Or
Is anybody out there?
Well, here's the thing. Or will Khabib go on and fight? Let's put a bracket into that as well and add on. Will Khabib fight Tony Ferguson? Could that be the thing? So that's just a brief rundown there and a brief kind of overview of those. So any of the viewers out there, if you'd like to put some comments down, we'd love to hear what you have to say. So brilliant. The true or false is Mayweather Khabib goes to Bellator, Khabib stripped of his title, and the Khabib McGregor rematch. And that is essentially the end of combat news.
I have some updates on Dazn.
Yep.
Was it Dazn? Dazn?
Dazn.
Sorry.
I would
Thank
call
you.
it Dazn. No, I would call it Dazn. That's how I was pronouncing it.
Again from the mighty DTA, who's basically informing us that they are the Netflix of sport.
Interesting. Thank you.
They're an app available in the US, Canada, Germany, and Italy. They have Series A football and will soon be in the market for the NFL and NBA.
Fantastic. Well, what was the abbreviation for the? Sorry, DTA. DTA. Thank you for contributing to tonight's show and engaging with us. That's interesting stuff. We didn't know that. So Dazn, where do they get their money from? That's interesting. Is it drug money? Well, that's your first guess. Is it? What's it?
I don't know. I mean, if they're more than just combat sports.
Well, what my theory is that there's a company in the background there. So like an entrepreneur, billionaire, an investor that's said, here's $1 billion, here's $500,000. Have they had So here we go. So perhaps somebody like, I'm not saying it is, but perhaps somebody like, Jeff Bezos, somebody like Elon Musk, somebody like Peter Thiel, who's one of the founders of PayPal. Could somebody like that have just put some money in and decided, I want to get involved a bit with sport? Have they dropped some money in? Have they had a funding round where they've raised funding from different investors?
They're owned by the Perform Group.
Who's the Perform Group? That's it. How deep
global
does
sports media company
how deep does this rabbit hole go?
The Perform is a global sports media company based in the UK.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to find out where the roots come from, though, because like I say, if you're dropping $500 million to one fighter, you haven't just started that off the back of your checkbook. Do you know what I'm saying? So
absolutely not. No.
It'd be interesting. So thanks for that information. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown now of what's been on and on for tonight's show, because we're expecting a special guest to phone in to discuss some of the mixed martial arts content. So HBO. Here we go. And I'll answer this by swiping the green right.
Make sure he's on loudspeaker, James.
Yes. Hello.
Hello there, how are you?
Hello, Chris. How are you? Good to speak to you.
You need to put it close to his mouth.
Yeah, it's good to speak to you.
It's good, man. Could I just ask you, Chris, if you're on speakerphone and is it okay to speak a bit closer into the phone? It's quite quiet, if you don't mind. Thank you.
I'm not actually on speakerphone.
All right, would it be okay to go on speakerphone? That would be great, because we can pick up better in the studio.
Right, okay, I'll try and go speakerphone. Hold on.
Thank you.
Is that better?
That's
If he wants to call back, if you ask him to call back, put it on loudspeaker, then call back.
is it, Chris? Would it be okay to ask you if you could call back on loudspeaker, because then it'll just give us a better signal and a better sound in the studio. It's just quite hard to hear.
Okay.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you. Can we turn the volume up on here at all?
It's up.
Once Chris calls back, can we then check that?
Yeah.
As soon as he calls back, we'll just put the volume up on full.
He has got it on loudspeaker, it's going to be really quiet.
Yeah.
And whilst we're waiting for Chris to call back, another.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
We're in. Hello.
Hello there, is that better?
It's still quiet. We're going to turn it up on this end.
Okay.
Brilliant. Hello.
Has he got his phone really quiet or something?
I don't think so. Hello, Chris. Can you hear us?
I can hear you very
Perfect. That's perfect. We got it. The volume was down on this side. Brilliant. How you doing, my friend? How are things?
Things are really good, yeah. Thanks very much for having me on the show again.
Oh,
Let me just start off by saying I told you Khabib would win.
Yeah, you did.
He,
On our last show.
He even named the round as well, didn't you?
I think you picked the round,
Yeah.
Chris.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, right? So I put it up on my Facebook. I put up all of my picks for the main card, and I only got one fight wrong, and it was the Owens St. Preux fight. But recently, I think it's the last four UFC events, I've been nearly right on every single fight. And one of the things, I'm actually following this page right now on Instagram called The Casual Fight Fan, and it's posts of people that are Conor McGregor fans, that are obviously casual fight fans, and they put up all this crazy stuff. And since obviously Conor McGregor's defeat, people have been putting crazy things up, like Conor was obviously off, Khabib obviously takes steroids. Khabib's a terrible fighter, the most boring fighter ever. Why does he not just stand up and fight him like a man with his hands and his feet? And I'm like,
Go to boxing.
well, why don't you just go watch kickboxing then, or Thai boxing? This is MMA, you know? So it's been quite interesting seeing the aftermath of the casual UFC fans and Conor McGregor fans. It's been pretty cool to see.
That's good. Just to give you a bit of context, so Chris Reid is a jiu-jitsu, experienced jiu-jitsu a martial artist, jiu-jitsu player, martial artist, athlete. We've got your picture up now, and a close personal friend of mine, and a former guest. So if you'd like to watch Chris, I believe on the Peep Live as a guest, it was episode 4, I think it was, that we had Chris on, and you can find a bit more about his background and history through that. So thank you for coming on as a guest, my friend. So we'd like to break down some of our mixed martial arts. You said something before, and I thought that could be a jingle when you come on. It was something that you'd said, and that was going to be your jingle. You rhymed something really well. I can't remember what it was. So we're going to get your.
I haven't got it on loudspeaker.
Chris's picks.
Say again.
Chris's picks.
Chris's picks. Yeah, it was. You said something better than that because, well, the first thing I want to say actually is on that note, I'm gonna have to get in touch with you a bit close to the next one, and we're gonna have to start putting a bit of money on it. Then you're gonna be the guy to turn to for any of the gamblers out there, you know.
Yeah, man. Parlays, let's do this.
Definitely.
Our man in Scotland.
Our man in Scotland. That could be it.
99% of the time it works every time, but there's only a 60% chance of that.
I love it. So let's lead off then, Chris. And just briefly, just very, very briefly, you just got back from, you've been away?
Yeah, I was. I went on a little weekend away to the Isle of Mull in Scotland.
Fantastic.
Beautiful. So I was taking in some castles, drinking some fine whiskies, checking out some distilleries, trying to find a bit of heritage there, ready to conquer the castles round about.
Love it.
It was nice. The only thing was, obviously, it rained until we were coming back home, and we saw actually this really amazing thing on the way back in the ferry. We passed by 3 dolphins, which was pretty cool.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's brilliant. That's all. Scottish dolphins.
Yeah, man, they were wearing kilts.
I thought so. So let's just get your thoughts on just briefly on there's two parts on this. On Fedor Emelianenko as a fighter, a little bit on Chael Sonnen and their fight and Bellator, and then we're just going to go through some of the true and false and your ideas on the Khabib McGregor.
Okay, cool. Do you want me to start off on Fedor fighting?
Yeah,
Chael then?
Yeah, the Fedor Chael, that would be great.
Okay, number one. So Fedor Emelianenko's always just been there. He always looks the same. He always fights the same. He's Russian. Russians are a different kind of white person. They're just made of something different. Chael Sonnen, he talks himself into fights, but there's always going to be an asterisk beside Chael Sonnen's name because he's tested positive for performance-enhancing substances.
Yeah, true.
I don't know what the testing system is in Bellator, so I can't comment. I don't think it's USADA. It might be VADA. I don't know what they do. Although he doesn't look in the same physique as he once did. He's getting a bit older. When Chael was fighting in the UFC, he was tearing through some people. But, when he fought John Jones, he was fighting a completely different animal.
So that was the other guy I left off, I think, John Jones. Yeah, of course he fought John Jones as well.
Yep, John Jones. He nearly beat Anderson Silva, but got triangled in the last 10 seconds or so, I think it was. There's always going to be an asterisk beside his name.
Yeah.
But the whole Bellator thing, it's a mixture of legends that probably maybe should be thinking about retiring that can't seem to, and young killers that went over there just for money. But with regards to the Fedor Chael Sonnen thing, I mean, Fedor's just an animal. I mean, the power that man has, he doesn't look like he cuts any weight. Looks like he just walks about at the same level all the time of size. He still grapples really well. He's still got crazy power. He looks unassuming. I saw Chael try to do a little bit of jiu-jitsu with him and do a bit of a back take, and he's just slipped off of him and ended up getting filled in.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
that back take's really difficult to do. What he was trying to do was he was on his back, he didn't have his hooks in, and he went to flip over the top of Fedor, but still with a kind of, I think it was a double under grip, and the intention that Fedor was going to flip over with him and then land into Chael's guard, and he would have his back, and Chael would maybe be able to work off his back. But it didn't work like that. He slipped because they were obviously covered in Vaseline and sweat and get beaten up, which wasn't really the best idea.
Agreed.
I don't know if Chael Sonnen should be done or not. I mean, he's quite a captivating guy. What do you think? Do you think he's maybe a bit too old now to maybe be progressing as a professional MMA fighter? I think he should maybe just stick to the analyst side of things.
Well, I think he's a great analyst. I mean, I do as a personality. I think he's fantastic. He reminds me a little bit of Mike Never. I just think I admire what he does, and I certainly supported him to beat Anderson Silva. And that was a crazy story. I don't know if you remember on that ship in Glasgow, that nightclub, that place. It's like an old cruise ship or something, or ferry that's used as a nightclub, and it's parked in Glasgow.
Yep, I can't remember the name of it, but I know the one you mean.
Yeah, we were there till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with what was that MMA fight? He called himself the Gladiator. A lovely guy. I can't remember. I forgot his name.
Oh man, I can't remember.
He fought. He was from Glasgow, and he had was it the Gladiator gym up there, and he fought. Anyway, I remember being with him and leaving the nightclub at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And then he wanted to go under a bridge to drink cider from a corner shop or something. So that was my memory of the fight. So it was fantastic. But yeah, so I think, but then for Chael, I don't think it's a bad thing him being in Bellator. I mean, if you retire, then rightly so. I mean, he does fight across the weights, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to be matched particularly. I'm not saying matched, hard, but I think he can still have some kind of career, but not fighting the top dogs. I think, if that makes sense. I think if he went to fight the top guys at heavyweight in UFC, I think he'd be done. But I think he can get away with fighting at Bellator because he's still a tremendous athlete. Fedor, I was just saying before, I don't know if you'd heard earlier on, I was saying about his boxing, like, his chin was up and this and that, but that guy is crazy. I mean, he's explosive, and his power is just like, I think he's the hardest hitting heavyweight in mixed martial arts.
He lunges at people when he punches. He doesn't, his feet are always like, they look like they're falling out underneath him.
Yeah.
The lunges he throws at people, doesn't he? So he throws with like, it's like as though he leads with a big hook, and he throws these kind of wild haymakers and straights. Mm-hmm. And if he isn't landing them, he's going to try and clinch up with you and take you down. Yeah. And if he does land with them, he just follows up by, someone will try and put up like a guard, or they'll put the legs up to try and maybe butterfly guard to try and save himself, and he's still like raining these big haymakers from above down on them. It's phenomenal to watch.
Who do you think will win in the final between Fedor? Who is it? Sorry, Fedor on is it Bader?
Ryan Bader.
Yeah.
I think Fedor will win. Ryan Bader is an amazing wrestler and such a young, strong, fit guy, but I think Fedor's hands are just so much better. He's a bit more ferocious. He's got a bit of momentum going now. Mm-hmm. And that fight did seem quite easy for him against Chael Sonnen, so he didn't really take much damage. Mm-hmm. I would put my money on Fedor.
Interesting.
Yeah, man.
Just moving on to
the... Can I ask you this then? Yeah. So what's your thoughts on kind of like, in inverted commas, like legends leagues like Bellator, where you've got guys that maybe can't quite fight in the UFC anymore, or stay in like the top 10 in the UFC, but they are able to fight in other places? I mean, because Chuck Liddell's fighting Tito Ortiz, and
really?
Yeah, that's coming up. It's your golden boy. It's what's his name? The boxer.
Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya. He's running an MMA league now. MMA promotion.
Right.
And he's Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell fighting on his like main card. I don't know who else is fighting. I think I saw Filthy Tom Lawler fighting on that card, who got banned for taking steroids, performance enhancing substances, and then went to become a pro wrestler. So I haven't really known who's on this card at all. All I've seen is Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz facing off a couple of times. Sadly, I saw Chuck Liddell do an interview today, and he wasn't really stringing sentences together. His paragraphs weren't making any sense. I don't know if he's rolling with a concussion, or he's got some type of traumatic head injury going on right now. That kind of stuff's a bit concerning, like the mileage some of these guys have put on throughout their career, but they're still, they still want to do this legend league stuff. So that's what I'm calling it anyway. I don't know, man. What's your thoughts?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I'm not massively against it. I think that, it is sad when you see fighters going on past their prime, to be quite honest. It is sad to see that. And obviously the main concern is their health, but perhaps rather that they have some kind of purpose to focus on, that they get themselves lost in potentially the avenue of drugs and alcohol and depression. At least then they've got some kind of purpose. And I would say secondly, that also it's on a quote unquote professional show. I'm sure if it's in a Golden Boy promoted show, rather than some kind of backdoor kind of show in, I don't know, the Middle East or in Japan or even in the UK somewhere, that's just thrown it on to have these guys to make a quick buck. And I'd say thirdly as well, if they're fighting guys of the same kind of age group and same kind of veteran status, then they're less likely, and obviously anything can happen, than damaged against someone like Chuck Liddell trying to make a comeback to win the UFC world title.
Yeah, man. I agree. I do think it's I think with some of the guys, so like I like the idea that maybe some of the guys have moved over to another promotion that probably could still do well in the UFC. I like that. I like the idea that maybe there's guys that can't break the top 10 anymore that can go over to another promotion and fight each other. That's great. But guys that have been getting their faces punched in and been putting a lot of mileage on, like Chuck Liddell, who his career essentially ended because he could not take the punishment anymore. His jaw was gone. He was getting knocked out in devastating fashion. But they're still using them. They're still using them, which is just a little bit concerning, man. I mean, is he using it because of his previous fame? I'm not too sure.
No, I agree. I agree with every word that you've said. But at the same time, kind of, I mean, at the same time, he's a grown man who can make his own decisions. But then again, perhaps they're not always going to be the right ones for his own welfare. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think that, I agree with what you're saying. But I also feel that, fighters do need to be kind of looked after if they can't look after themselves. But then at the very least, it's pointed in, I don't know, the right direction, Just moving on, Chris, because we're running short of time here.
Cool.
We're gonna have to. I'd just like to quickly get your quick thoughts on these true or false questions I'm going to throw to you. You don't just need to say true or false, but just one or two lines after that. Mayweather versus Khabib.
Mayweather versus Khabib.
Yeah.
I know, I saw that. That's absolutely embarrassing, man. Yeah. Mayweather will just beat the shit off him, won't he?
Yeah.
He'll absolutely smash him. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, Khabib might be tough enough to be able to last 12 rounds, but what's the point, man? I mean, it's just an embarrassment. Mayweather loves these like paycheck money fights, but
Khabib goes to Bellator.
If Khabib goes to Bellator,
this is another. Is that true or false?
All right, you asking? Nah, no chance. I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, I think Khabib's probably going to get a 12 to 18 month suspension for that fracas at the end of his fight. He might have to try and find something like the Mayweather fight, but that would have to be done in Russia because he's not going to be able to get Nevada State Athletic Commission clearance to be able to fight in Vegas. Mayweather is not going to fight in Russia. He only wants to fight in Vegas because he can pretty much cycle to the arena and it's his home ground. So why would he want to fight outside in Russia? That fight's never going to happen. It's just something Mayweather does to stay in the limelight and jump on the back of everybody else. I mean, it would be a good money spinner. I don't know what's going to happen with that one, man.
How about this one? Just a few more. Khabib gets stripped of his title?
There's a high chance that's going to happen. If he gets suspended for longer than 6 months, there's a very high chance that's going to happen. Do the UFC think Khabib's going to be marketable enough for that division? Do they want Conor McGregor to have it again? I'm not too sure. But yeah, I'd probably say if he's suspended for longer than 6 months, that is going to be getting stripped off of him. And maybe Conor McGregor will fight possibly Tony Ferguson. For that belt.
And the last one, Khabib versus McGregor rematch.
Yeah, it's got to happen. I think, is it marketable enough for the UFC to do that? Yes, absolutely, because there's a lot of bad blood there. Probably Conor McGregor, because he's such a game fighter, he will want that win back. But realistically, can Conor McGregor win? I think not. It's not going to happen. I saw an interview with John Kavanagh on the Joe Rogan podcast, and no, it wasn't Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking to Ariel Helwani, and he said he would like them to just disappear, him and his old team to just disappear and train for 3 months, old school style, Rocky 3 style. I can totally understand that, because that fight, Conor McGregor was concentrating on his whiskey tour. He looked flat. He looked really smooth when he was walking to the ring. Even when they were calling his name out, he was drinking water because his mouth was dry with nerves. He needs to just really take it back to what originally got him in the UFC, and it was that kind of hardcore style training. But was it George Foreman that said it's hard to get up and run at 5 a.m. when you're in silk pajamas?
Yeah, it was George Foreman, yeah.
So it's like he's kind of at a level now. I mean, win or lose, you're still going to get 50 million. I mean, where's the motivation? Maybe that's going to come back now after that Khabib loss, but I just don't think his ground game's on that level. And Khabib's ground's just so tight that it's almost unbeatable. But nobody's unbeatable.
Also, Chris,
it's almost unbeatable.
Just lastly, Cliff, rather, a quick word.
Chris, can you hear us?
Yes.
It's hard to fight like a hungry man when your fridge is full.
There you go.
There you go. Right, guys, we're going to have to end it on there. Chris, thank you very much for phoning in again. I look forward to seeing you soon. I'll give you a call over the next few days, and we'll have to get something together, my man.
Definitely. Let's do a Chris's picks for the next Peep Live then, okay?
Perfect. 100%.
Cool.
100%.
Okay.
Take care, Chris.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Love you guys.
Man.
Take care.
See you, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, brilliant little... brilliant phone in there. Thank you to Chris Reid for phoning in. As I say, if you do want to watch that Chris Reid on the live show, it is on episode number 4. Now, I'm just thinking, I'm not leaving things out tonight, but I just wonder if it might be nice to jump over to Scott.
Okay.
Just because you know we've the combat news went a little bit too long.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get your voice on the show, and I think we should now jump forward to. Are you on the trade routes or the uni lad or both?
I'll just go. Should we go straight? We'll go to the uni lad.
I think so. That's what I was thinking. Let's do that. Let's jump to that. So over to.
So yeah, it's this one's a bit of a soap opera, and I was thinking today it's a bit like Dallas, and then I thought actually no, it's a bit like Mad Men on Tamazapan is how I thought of it. Really, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, our massive content providers, Unilad, have been taken over by their main competitor, Lad Bible. Unilad had 40 million, well, still have got 40 million unique users on Facebook and Instagram. Lad Bible 31 million, but that's not profitable enough for them. They've have branched out and done different things with various content issues, content advertising. With both of them have done Cadbury's. They've done Lad Bible's set up their own agency called Joyride. But it all comes down really is that the founder of Unilad. I'm getting confused myself, and I've been looking at this I've been watching this develop over the last few weeks. Yeah, it's been bizarrely exciting. Alex Partridge, he decided to give 66% away of Unilad to 2 other guys who just came along and helped him, and that was in 2013. And they, about 4 months after he did that, they just shut him out. So don't give away your company benefits, kids. So yeah, it's a bizarre kind of situation where he then had to take him to court, and he won 5 million quid, which he then sold the debt to the main competitor, Lad Bible, and then that's how it unfolded, because Lad Bible then put in a takeover bid. It got rejected, and then the receivers got called the following week. Has this one been in your radar at all?
No, not in the slightest. No, I mean, I'm not. I don't even. To be honest, I don't even know what the Unilad and the Ad Bible is. I imagine is it?
Well, I don't know. I assumed you would know. Just
no, it's not
big. Basically, the two. They started off kind of doing.
A bit like Vice as well, James.
Yeah, they're kind of like a third-rate Vice, a little bit more.
No, it's
the content is, but it's all very viral-y stuff. Yeah, that. Then when they were talking to us about that deal clip, I think I've discovered it. Yeah. They kind of do like controversial-esque kind of stories and like short videos on Facebook. They're both based in Manchester. They've got offices in Manchester and London. Unilad have 200 staff, so you would have seen it on your Facebook feed, some of the stuff, but obviously it just hasn't hit a resonance with you.
No, it's not. It's probably not really my cup of tea.
I don't know. It just kind of just seems to be
cup or tea.
Everyone just seems to be sharing the stuff at all points, and you're just there, like, and it's just there. And I think being such maybe it's because I'm sort of in that digital world on a day-to-day level, possibly as well. So basically, don't give away 66% of your company. Oh, Cliff, give 66% of your company, and then get thrown out. No.
Interesting. So what's the end result on all that then? What will be the
it went to
the prognosis?
It went. I was going to say receivers, not receivers. It is a receiver, isn't it? And they basically Lad Bible took them over because they had a better package accordingly. But alongside that, other bidders have said there's an unfair bidding process. But but one of those bidders was a joint bid from Linman Capital, Rocket Media, and Jungle Creations.
Mm-hmm.
However, the main guy of Linden Capital was acting as the CEO of Unilad as well. So it's all very
quite convoluted, isn't it?
It is very convoluted, very, very sort of incestuous as well to a degree. So now with that takeover, if you think of what so Unilad now has 71 million, a user base of 71 million
it's pretty
across
good.
social media channels.
Yeah, it's quite substantial.
Yeah,
substantial.
and I did read somewhere that they're the biggest content provider in the world because of this because of the takeover. And Cliff was like, "Oh, Vice is bet more," and we were having that conversation earlier. But if we take away Vice's E4, I think they are bigger than Vice. But I don't know if we include the E4. Sorry, the E4, the more for kind of more for content. Vice's content being on more for. If that's added in, I don't know where it sits, but it's just an interesting little tidbit of kind of digital businessy news that I thought was quite
very relevant.
And I thought like a lot of our viewers probably would have heard of the two companies, James. And
so then Unilad, so the combined company or the overtaken company then still producing content that's gone onto Facebook and things.
They're still producing content from both channels at the moment. However, Unilad's got 200 staff, so there will be culls at some point.
Yeah,
and will they amalgamate in the medium term, or will they try and keep it two separate entities? I know where my guess would be, but I think it's quite unsustainable having the two separate. But just time will tell. But it's all quite hyped up on there. Yeah.
Well, perhaps when we split off into all these various sections and syntaxes and peep lives and what's the other one? Trade routes. And we'll all have little, shares and we all buy each other out and stab each other's backs.
Yeah. We'll all hate each other at the core.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, can we?
Do you want to go to trade routes now? Or?
Well, I was thinking. I mean, do we?
What do you want to do?
Have we done trade? I mean, we have mentioned trade. We've kind of mentioned trade routes, haven't we?
We did, yeah.
So I think we're going to jump over that. I think we're going to move on to. Well, I think me personally, I think we're going to do Jordan Peterson and then peep.xs. Because I think we're gonna start chopping over the.
Do you want to do a usual slot?
Well, should we do the usual slot, just a quick one, or should we jump over that? Let's do a very quick one then. Yeah, I did. I was gonna. Yeah, let's do a quick one then. So the usual slot with Ridley Scott. TNT orders Ridley Scott's final editorial debut TV series Raised by Wolves. The show focuses on two androids that are tasked with raising human children on a mysterious Virgin Island. As a human colony is torn apart by religious differences, the androids find how difficult it is to control human beliefs. Ridley Scott quote. I am always searching for frontiers in the sci-fi genre and have found a true original in Raised by Wolves. A wholly distinct and imaginative world full of characters struggling with existence-based questions into what makes us human. Ridley Scott also said that the show is sponsored by Spennymoor Sports, the North Sea's #1 boxing retailer. Shout out to he is a fan of the show. It should be pointed out. Ridley Scott. So that's interesting. So if anybody has TNT, which is a subscription-based channel, that the new TV series will be coming out shortly. Raised by Wolves by Ridley Scott, and we do encourage everyone to support one of our supporters of the show, Mr. Sir Ridley Scott. It is a Sir, isn't it? Yeah. Right, we're going to move on to another section. Well, essentially, this is peep.xs that we're into now. We're shallow into the waters of peep.xs. We're going to look again, as we normally do each show, starting two shows ago. It's the third show with it. We're going to talk a little bit about on Mr. Jordan B. Peterson, clinical psychologist, college professor, writer, philosopher. Mr. Jordan Peterson, one of the at one point the greatest selling book on the New York Times, top of the New York Times list, bestseller list. Bam. Also, I think it was second on Amazon at one point for best-selling books. Tremendous book, which I recommend to everybody out there and endorse. I also recommend that you. He's also quite well known for the Kathy Newman interview, the infamous Kathy Newman interview, which I think has had over 12 million views so far. God knows how many comments. So a gentleman out there who's trying to, I don't want to say changing the world because that's too cliche, but looking to help every individual out there, or certainly kind of openly mentor every individual out there, men and women, boys and girls, to better themselves, take responsibility, and become the best version of what they can be for themselves. So what we've done is a regular thing, as I say, as 2 shows ago. The 12 Rules of Life is essentially 12 chapters. So we're giving you a kind of a rundown or a synopsis and our viewpoints and a few quotes from the book, or readings from the book. It's a short section. We're not going to read your whole chapters or the whole book, or we might do that on a future show. So Mr. Jordan B. Peterson, 12 Rules of Life. So this month, we're on rule number 3. Lovely artwork there, which is to represent rule 3, which you may or may not be able to see on the screen. Let's hope I don't lose my little post here. Rule number 3 is make friends with people who want the best for you. So once again, the chapters, the rules called make friends with people who want the best for you. Now, on first glance, i.e. reading the title, it seems as if that this is purely about what it says on the tin, that to make friends with people who want the best for you. But my kind of interpretation of it, it's deeper than that. It's a little bit more kind of meta in a sense. It's about the people around you, and in actual fact, how you respond to them. That's what I took from it. So I'm just reading some of my writings, the notes here that I put, that the chapter is not so much about the title, it's more a study of the actions of others and your actions or your response to this. It's how we can align ourselves to aim for the greater good, when in fact, aiming down comes more naturally to us. So essentially, it's not like, how did that person achieve such great success in business? How did they achieve such great success in relationships? How did they discipline themselves to get up every morning and train and become a professional athlete? But it's more a case of, why didn't they just stay in bed? Why didn't they just take drugs? Why didn't they? It's not a surprise people do that. The surprise is why we all don't do that, because it's easier to avoid responsibility than it is to kind of, to take a hold of it. And the idea is that, we do take a hold of responsibility. We do get up each morning. We do go out there to try and better ourselves. And this chapter is really about, focus about that within ourselves and that within others, and what truly separates those who strive towards purpose as against those who don't. And the surprise is the fact that people do strive towards purpose and I don't just say success and achievement, but strive towards, again, something greater than what they have right now. Scott, what's your interpretation of that chapter? Make friends with people who want the best for you, or that rule, I should say, rule 3.
Yeah, firstly, I just want to, I think, as we were saying off camera, that this chapter, Jordan really uses his own experiences, which worked really well, I felt, and doesn't go too scientific, and he doesn't really hammer points home, which is really nice. So it's a really easy, digestible rule, to be honest. And I just felt it's it's not to ignore those who need help. It's to help them as much as you can, but you've only got a certain amount of energy, only a certain amount of time, only a certain amount of whatever to resources. Thank you to do that. And obviously, if you stay too long helping someone else, then you may end up you see spiraling down yourself possibly. And also as well, it's kind of, you need to be, as we were talking about the whole book, it's about being the best person you can be. And then once you've achieved that, then you can help other people to a certain degree, but you can't put all your energies into helping other people. And it's not just make friends with people who want the best for you, having awareness of who those friends are, what your response is to them, and how you kind of, how you're changing one another for the better or for the worse. So on that point, I'd like to. It is a short. It's a short rule. It is. Yeah. I didn't realize how short it was. Imagine how happy I was when I realized I had to. Oh, don't tell me all my things have dropped out. Oh, they have. It's fine. I can. So I'm just going to read a few little quotes here, which I've lost my place. So I'm going to see if I can find these. Give me 2 seconds. That's fine. If I have any interlude music, Cliff, that would be fantastic. Whilst I need like the gallery like you used to have on Take Heart or something.
I've got them.
I was thinking something a bit more gentle, to be honest.
I've found them. All is well, all is well. Okay, so I'm just going to read these direct, not quotes, but writings from the book. It is far more likely that a given individual has just decided to reject the path upwards because of its difficulty. Perhaps that should even be your default assumption when faced with such a situation. That's too harsh, you think? You might be right. Maybe that's a step too far, but consider this. Failure is easy to understand. No explanation for its existence is required. In the same manner, fear, hatred, addiction, promiscuity, betrayal, and deception require no explanation. It's not the existence of vice or the indulgence in it that requires explanation. Vice is easy. Failure is easy too. It's easier not to shoulder a burden. It's easier not to think, not to do, and not to care. It's easier to put off until tomorrow what needs to be done today and drown the upcoming months and years in today's cheap pleasures. As the infamous father of the Simpson clan puts it, immediately prior to downing a jar of mayonnaise and vodka, that's a problem for future Homer. Man, I don't envy that guy. I have a couple more short ones. I am not saying there is no hope of redemption, but it is much harder to extract someone from a chasm than to lift him from a ditch. And some chasms are very deep, and there's not much left of the body at the bottom. Obviously all metaphorical. I have one more. I'll just turn the page. Read this. Here we go. Last chapter. Here's something to consider. If you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to your sister, your father, or son, why would you have someone as a friend for yourself? You might say this out of loyalty. Well, loyalty is not identical to stupidity. Loyalty must be negotiated fairly and honestly. Friendship is a reciprocal arrangement. You are not morally obliged to support someone who is making the world a worse place. Quite the opposite. You should choose people who want things to be better, not worse. It's not a good thing, not a selfish thing to choose people who are good for you. It's appropriate and praiseworthy to associate with people whose lives would be improved if they saw your life improve. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Powerful stuff.
Very powerful.
Powerful stuff.
All good.
That is available to buy through PEEPlive. No, not really. We can get you can have this used official copy for the bargain price of £200 UK. It's not signed by Jordan Peterson, but it will be signed by Mr. Cliff Sainsbury, Mr. Hollingworth, and Mr. James Watley. It is available on Amazon or any local bookstore. So I highly recommend that book. It's the Maps of Meaning book that he wrote is a very kind of deep scientific book, which I haven't actually read.
I think I'll give it a wide berth from what he was
what he was saying. Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that if you're studying clinical psychology, that's something absolutely to read. But for the man on the street, and for all three of us here, that's a fantastic book, and we do recommend it. Just a quick one. Chapter Rule 4, just so you know, for next month.
If you've got it, you can read along.
If you've got it, you can read along. I'll give you the chapter. I'll give you the page number. Chapter Rule 4 will be compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Sound advice, that.
Right. PEEPxs continues. Here we go. So, send me location. No. Cenobites. What would you do? What would you say if I said to you Cenobites? Would you recognize that phrase? Perhaps not. How about if I said Pinhead? Do you remember that? Did you see that skit that Jim Carrey did on in Living Colour? It was Fireman Bob. He'd play this guy called Fireman Bob, and he'd like come in and he'd be like, "You got to watch those curtains; they could set on fire." And he'd just come up and set them on fire. Right? And one of them be like, "What's this box of tacks doing down here? What if they fell on the floor?" So he just throws them on the floor. Right? He starts rolling on them, and he stands up. He's got a face full of tacks. He's like, "You end up looking like Pinhead." Brilliant. You got to watch it. Going going back to where we were.
Yeah.
Hellraiser, 1987. Now this is a not an homage. What would you say? Kind of a tribute to the fact we're at Halloween on Wednesday, the 31st of October is Halloween, and coincidentally, another film that we reviewed, the remake of the Halloween. I'm actually going to go watch that on Wednesday. So we're going to talk on Hellraiser. We're going to talk a little bit on Hellraiser, the British horror genre film that was released back in 1987. Hellraiser is a British horror film, I was reading from my notes, based on the book. I really want Cliff to listen to this because it's my own writings. I want him to get his viewpoint on this. No, it's good. I'll wait till I want to get our... Ooh. Hellraiser is a British horror film based on the book The Hellbound Heart. This is written from my hand, not copied off Wikipedia.
I believe
written by Clive Barker. Barker also wrote and directed the movie adaptation, whose name was changed to Hellraiser. Scott's just quickly actually flicked on to Wikipedia to check I'm not reading word by word. Briefly, this tells a story of a married couple who live in what appears to be a British suburb with their stepdaughter Kirsty, played by Ashley Lawrence. Larry, the father, who is played by, I need to refer to... is it Sean Chapman? Or he plays... No, sorry. I'll go back to my notes. Larry, the father, cuts his hand whilst moving furniture in the house they've just recently moved into, which leads to his blood being spilled on the attic floor, with Julia, the stepmother, present, his wife. This then initiates Frank, played by Sean Chapman, the brother, to resurrect as Julia, who once had an unforgotten affair with Frank, brings home men to murder them for their blood he needs to resurrect fully from the dead. This leads to the realization that Frank sought off-world pleasures via a mysterious puzzle box, which in fact leads him directly to hell, and an encounter with the deadly and horrifying Cenobites. Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, the Cenobites are a group of Sidomaschic entities who live in an extra-dimensional realm where they perform experiments and extreme, not just sexual, but experiences for the senses. They're almost like Hell's Angels in a sense. They're So without getting too much deep into it, let's talk about the kind of the awareness of Hellraiser. I remember watching Hellraiser back when I was a teenager, and it was really a massive, for me, a change on the horror genre. I was a horror fan as a kid. I believe Nightmare on Elm Street had come out at that time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I believe the first Friday the 13th had come out at that point. Zombie, Halloween. But when Hellraiser came out, we'd never really seen anything like it before, you know. And the I don't want to say, but the visual images of Pinhead when he first comes on screen, and also it should bear note, that's just come to me now, that they're only on screen for a very short time in the first film. It was only at the end of the film, you know, maybe perhaps not more 10 minutes film screen time, and that they were on, and it was just a very kind of strange and kind of. I don't want to say character-driven, but a strange twist on the horror genre that kind of really unnerved you, but then also, I suppose, interested you in what was happening. So I also remember my sister, Estelle, letting my niece, Georgina, who's about 22, 23 now, watching Hellraiser as a very young child, and it traumatizing her, actually. But it's fair to say that Pinhead was kind of the poster boy of the film, and certainly of the franchise. Played incredibly, I don't know if profoundly is the right word, but with such depth. With so few words, by Doug Bradley, who went on to play Pinhead, I think, in the next 7 films, if I'm correct in saying. So just very briefly, Hellraiser went on to spawn a sequel, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, which I think dipped more into the background of the Cenobites, and particularly of Doug Bradley, of Pinhead. Then on to Hellraiser 3, which is more open world and a bit more kind of like, I want to say, and I'm a fan of comic books, but you use that as a terminology.
Have you seen the third one, Jim?
I have, yeah. It's more like I liked it. I actually really liked the third one, but it's more kind of comic booky and more kind of like super villainy in a sense. But I still think it's a good film. I enjoyed it. I actually read. Do you remember Fangora?
No, I haven't seen that.
No, the book. Remember the book that used to come out like it was for horror fans. It was Fangora. and what was the other one? There was two of them, like two books that would come out for horror fans and tell you about upcoming horror movies.
That's
no.
kind of got past us, that one.
No, you recognise the other one, Fangora, and anyway, it'll come to me in a second. So I remember reading about Hellraiser 3 before it came out, and the idea it was in a nightclub and Smoker, which was one of the and I loved that. So I was a fan of Hellraiser. Now, just before I come off here, when Cliff had mentioned, we kind of had the studio meeting. We said, "Oh, what should we do?" And I was like, "Hellraiser," and he said, "Oh, do you want to borrow it and watch it again?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And the reason I said no is because I didn't want my mind kind of like affected with that kind of horror movie, because I had a lot of things to kind of focus on. But then after I'd said that, I kind of regretted it. I was like, I might have to borrow these if that's okay tonight, because I do want to rewatch them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm now glad I didn't, because it allows me to just in memory, you know. Cliff,
brilliant.
Yeah. I'm just there's just so much to talk about.
Really
so much
is.
to talk about this film.
Yeah.
I don't know how you want to approach it.
Well, it was adapted from a novel called The Hellbound Heart, which Clive Barker had obviously written. Now, Clive Barker, I'm not sure the process of raising funds and the studio and who went to who to put this on the big screen, but I do know that he had full creative control as director and producer, and he could and there was some small changes, I would say, from the book to the film, that changing the sex of Pinhead. Originally that was female, changing to male. There was a few of the bit more graphic sexual kind of content in the book, I think, as well, which was which was changed for the film, perhaps to make it more commercial. And I think, Cliff, it'd be interesting to get your opinion on one thing that I noticed 30 years ago when I watched this movie. Was it 30? Yeah, it wouldn't be 40, would it? Would it? No. How old am I? No, I wouldn't. No. maybe if my sister was, if I was one of my sister's kids, which would be impossible, but maybe then she would have let me watch it, because she let Jeannie watch it when she was.
Unless you've been using the box, James.
Yeah. Then go back and let myself be my own dad or something. But no, the point is that I noticed that I was like watching it, and it's set very clearly in a British UK suburban kind of area, house, etc. And yet it's like American cops that come in and it's kind of strange, and both the lead actors are American, the daughter's American, the mum's very British.
Yeah.
Right. So
and and isn't Frank very British? It's Frank.
Oh no, I thought American are the two brothers not American. Is one of them British as well? You're
right.
And the daughter's American, the two guys are American, but the girl, the lady, Julia, after the actress coming in, she's very, very British. And the men she brings back are all British.
The femme fatale.
Yeah, the femme fatale. But then when
all the guys she brings back,
very British,
quintessentially British,
quintessentially British.
Like even so much so that back in the say like the 60s or the 70s, where men used to have them straps to hold the socks up.
Yeah, that's right. They had those on.
One of the guys has actually got them.
Yeah,
the times in the bowler hats as well.
I mean, the story leads on. So with Julia trying to resurrect her past lover, which is her husband's brother, by bringing men home, killing them, because then he's able to kind of like resurrect himself, and you see that he's grows from just like a flesh with a skeleton with flesh on, and then he starts to, and then she ends up, and then the daughter, Kirsty, she's obviously very watching these men being brought home, and then she's obviously not concerned, but tries to find her father to tell him what's happening. I mean, no spoilers, right? Should I not?
Well,
can we do spoilers? It's 30 odd years old.
It's kind of like a 30, nearly 40.
So actually, I'll give it spoiler light then. So it leads on with a confrontation. I'll not tell you actually what happens with the two brothers. I'll not say that. And then I believe that the daughter Kirsty's then put into is hospitalized. I can't exactly remember why. Perhaps Julia attacks her.
She actually runs off with the box.
Yeah, that's right. She gets this box.
Yeah.
But she ends up in hospital. I can't remember why. And then inadvertently she opens a box and releases the Cenobites.
It's just like she has a breakdown because
that's
she runs
a
away.
Mental breakdown. That's right.
She gets
kind
of rescued.
Yeah.
From the street time, and then goes into a hospital.
Into it like a mental hospital, and she opens it, and then what happens is when this box is opened, all the world around you is kind of transformed into hell, but it's still the world around you, but hell. And then she's chased down by this kind of like this dog monster creature. She confronts Pinhead, or rather than she's kind of they come out and confront her, and then want to take her to hell. And it's at that point where she then says, "Oh, somebody's escaped your clutches. Frank has come back from the dead," and he's and then so she essentially makes a deal with the Cenobite. Say, "Look, if you spare me and my father, you can have him back." So then she leads them back to the house, and then the film continues from there. I'll not spoil the ending for you.
I mean, I've got some quite cool facts.
Yeah, let's hear some facts. I can't wait.
Please facts.
I'm gonna say them quick because I found a few of them. The origins of Pinhead, 1973. Clive Barker directed a play called Hunters in the Snow. If there's anyone out there who knows of this, where Doug Bradley, Doug Bradley, the
lead actor,
plays the Dutchman. I don't know who this guy is, but a torturer who became the inspiration for Pinhead. Another little fact is the Cenobite's design was inspired by S&M clubs in New York and Amsterdam.
That makes sense.
And I'm sure Clive Barker was a frequent of them places.
Yeah.
And Barker also says his inspiration for Pinhead were photographs of African fetishes, sculptures of human heads that were carved in wood and pierced with spikes and nails. So that was quite interesting. And I think this film's a love story. That's what I think. When you have a think about it.
Well, it is a love story.
It's all based around Jane trying to get Frank back. She's so deeply in love with him, even though she's married to her brother.
See, I would
His
say
brother.
I would disagree with that point. I think it's not about. I don't think it's about love or true love, but in any sense, I think it's about the opposite. I think it's about lust and envy. It's about essentially sin, and that's why it's linked in with the.
I've got a couple of more little gems. There was a law in England in which you couldn't have cockroaches that were both the same sex on a film set or in the same building or area, because they would breed so quickly it would cause a manifestation of cockroaches. So if you remember, Hellraiser was a lot of cockroaches around, so they had to get a guy in called a wrangler. Who would sex the cockroaches?
Fair one.
and that was he would put the cockroaches in a fridge, and it would obviously I don't know how it worked because I'm not a wrangler, and then I presume that blood would start getting cold and they will become a bit docile.
Yeah.
So that's why it was a little trick to keep the cockroaches on. In the shot, because if anyone's seen a cockroach, that they just as soon as the light goes on, the scatter.
Yeah.
So I just thought I would share that with you.
No, that was interesting. Yeah. So, the film itself, like I say, it did spawn 7 or 8 sequels, which reducing. That's not the right word. Let's say reducing quality, or what would you say? Not reducing quality.
Budget.
Declining quality. Well, the quality of the film, the story, it all started to drop off really after 3. I would say.
Typical franchise kind of element.
And then it did become very much a franchise, kind of let's make a buck. But I would say the original 3 and certainly the original 2 are high marker points of British horror genre. certainly recommend them at Peep Magazine with Halloween coming up. I mean, you could pick up, it may well be that Hellraiser's on Netflix or Amazon Prime if you have those, if you search. If not, you could pick up the DVD for a couple of quid from Amazon, including delivery, 2 or 3 quid for the original. We definitely endorse it and recommend it. So if you have no other plans next Halloween, if you're not at a Halloween party dressing up or you're out trick-or-treating, or maybe if you are, really recommend that you pick up a copy of Hellraiser, run it, and we'd be interested to, if you want to comment on the next show about the film and what you thought and what your views of it were. Your opinions, rather. And tell us about those, and if you can find any more information on those strange American police. Because it's like, could you imagine this? So imagine like go for a horror, like, I mean, American, like a horror film set in the States in America, but like real kind of, well, let's say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It doesn't get much more American than Texas, right? Yeah. And I've not really seen that film, but there's a bit where, is it all the families in the some kind of big American barn or something like that, and they're all speaking very American dialect to each other and very Texas drawl, and git and whatever, and they're eating probably Texan food or whatever, and then suddenly like these 3 British bobbies come in with like, what's going on here? Yeah, what's going on here? I want to work with you. Imagine that. What the beep?
It's true though, because that's exactly what he's exactly what he's done.
What British comedy was it? Brute, stop, or I'll shout stop again. In America, it's like that was on some, I don't know, was. Right then, we are at the end. That is the end of the show. We hope we've managed to hit 1 hour and 46 minutes. We're trying to trim these bad boys down to 1.5 hours, but we did expand a little bit there. We knew it was going to be a fat show, so we promised to do the next show in let's do the next show in 1 hour and 25 minutes. That's the challenge for the next show. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. So
just before we go though, just want to remind everybody about the Mag. Magazine on Issue. Yes. Marketing manager of Issue's been in touch. Cliff, is this right?
Boom.
Yeah, you use your mic. That'd be great.
Yeah. The marketing manager of Issue are in talks with Peep Magazine at the moment. So we're just trying to think of different ways to better market Peep Magazine on Issue, and the CEO's been in touch as well. So they're all quite, I wouldn't say excited, because they probably look at hundreds of magazines, but just to have that contact, just to have amazing. That conversation backwards and forwards with Issues, great, you know.
I don't know how their CEO feels, but the CCO over here is absolutely over the moon. What was the name of that clothing company? Can we just give them a quick shout?
Mika James.
Mika James. We will be featuring some Mika James. We'll be wearing some Mika James clothing on the show, which are another partner of ours. So we're going to talk a little bit about on that. If you remember the fantastic in-case bag that I've very kindly have been brought in, that's now become my go-to bag. I've finally got rid of the animal. Excuse me. Animal, thank you completely, and it is the #1 bag. So a big shout out to Incase. So on that same kind of note, we'll be having some of the, again, what was the name? Sorry, the Mika James clothing. We'll be wearing the jumpers. We'll be rocking those in the studio, wearing them out about town, doing a little mini review, giving them a shout out. So thank you to them. We'd like to thank you, not Patreon, but we'd thank you Patreon in the future. We'd like to thank you Consinity. Big shout out to them. We'd like to thank Spending More Sports with another close partner of ours. We'd like to thank Incase. We'd like to thank Mika James. We'd like to thank Clive Barker for making Hellraiser. We'd like to thank Mr. Jordan Peterson for being such a tremendous gentleman and writing such a tremendous book. And you can follow him on tour at the minute. He's actually on tour in the UK at the moment. A little shout out to Ridley Scott. I'd like to thank my co-host, Mr. Scott Lingworth, for being here with me today.
Thank you, James.
I'd like to thank our CEO and Sainsbury Fortune, what would it be? What would you say? Once that happens, you'll be seen as in warmer climates. Perhaps a beach. Can we do a beach studio on the Caribbean? Well, not Caribbean, Hawaii.
Definitely,
and I can get some surf footage on as well, watching me getting knocked off my board. run off. And a big shout out to my son, Rhodes. I'd say shout out Rhodes Keach in case he's watching.
Excellent.
Baz Jones, one of our weekly, monthly supporters and viewers, who's with us every time. Shout out to Baz Jones and manage him. Thank you to Mr. Chris Reid for phoning in. Future guest, one of my students, training partners, Matthew Stark, who potentially on a future show maybe watching tonight. King of the North. Thank you for watching. If you are, please subscribe. Join us every month for the best combat and street wear
lifestyle
show. Next
show.
week, just quickly, because I don't have a drink this week, I'm going to have a glass of red wine by my side.
Wow.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Ooh, November the 30th.
Is that when it is?
Yeah, November 30th.
Need to write that on the wall calendar.
And we have we'll have a special little segment for next month.
Yep.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Oh yes, upcoming show, Bruce Lee. I'm going to rerun. I've just watched Enter the Dragon. Actually, I'm going to rerun a few of the films, perhaps. I'm going to watch Dragon, actually, the Bruce Lee story, which was an adaptation of that. I've read his latest biography, and I would say the most in-depth and most, what would you say, not just expansive, but with the
most research on it, most knowledge,
most informative research. And I'll bring that with me, and we're going to give a shout to that. We're going to do a little segment on Bruce Lee. Might have a special graphic for that to look forward to. We're going to do a piece, our next film. We don't call these film reviews. What do we call them? Film overviews. We're going to do The Crow. On the listen.
Brandon Lee.
On the same episode, exactly. Yeah, because it's not only is it my favorite film of all time, it's obviously a direct link there with Brandon Lee to Bruce Lee.
Is that the guy on your phone, James?
It is. That's exactly. There you go, Brandon Lee from The Crow.
Wow.
We're going to talk about the music. We're going to talk about the story, the film, the way it kind of defined, I would say, the genre, the depth of the script, of the writing, the production values, the failed attempts at what do you call it when you take you cover it again, you cover a film again. What's it called? Like, not a reshoot, but if you were to do an up-to-date version of a film, there's a specific name for it. Remake. Thank you. Yeah, all the failed attempts to remake the film. We're going to talk a bit about the history, a bit about the on-set, a little bit about Brandon Lee's feelings towards playing Eric Draven. We're going to talk about the music, The Cure. So that's going to be on a future show. And I think that's about it.
Can I just say one thing? Can we just cover this competition one more time?
Of course.
We're going to do it one more time. So once we have 2,000 subscribers, we are going to pick a random subscriber from our subscription base. We are going to send you out a set of hand wraps. We're going to send you out some gauze, some tape, and these fantastic paddles. That's fine. Don't worry about it. These fantastic paddles, very kindly donated to us by Spenny Moore Sports. Baz Jones, do you want to win another set?
Yeah.
Let's get subscribing, people. Yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a great show. I've enjoyed it. My feet are absolutely freezing, but that's not a problem because it is Peep Live. Thank you, Scott. We are out.
Magnetizing, feels like I am floating, leaves my body glowing.